And private universities cry foul as government withdraws their tax-exempt status.
Yes, I mean, we all have to pay taxes. I stand for that. We need to develop our country. But in trying to bring up taxes, we must be cautious. Other than that, you would start for certain initiative, and the tax that you get, in the end, you have to pay more as a government. I can tell you, if private universities are to fold up, then it means that government will have to build universities upon universities upon universities. That is not the answer.
And why shouldn't private universities pay taxes, and what informed government decision to tax them? We'll stay tuned right here on today's big story, a special edition which is coming just about 5:45 as a result of the President Atta Mills Memorial Lecture. Right, so the show is brought to you by Blue Rose Limited, Shelter for All, and Star Life Assurance. Now, until recently, private universities in Ghana were exempted from the payment of corporate tax in accordance with Section 10(1)(d) of the Internal Revenue Act. Now, under Section 10(1)(d) of the Act exempts income accruing to or derived by any exempt organization other than income from business. Section 94 of Act 592 defined exempt organizations as religious, charitable, or educational institution of a public character. The Internal Revenue Act, Act 592, was amended by Act 859 in May, and this was with the aim of bringing private universities into the tax net. But the development does not sit well with heads of private universities in Ghana. Rector and Vice Dean of the Graduate School of the Pentecost University College, Professor Omani Entry, spoke to us on the issue.
The restoration of the tax, for me, I think it would stifle initiative coming from the private sector. The public-private partnership is going on very well, with the private sector coming in to help as far as higher education is concerned. We all know the challenge facing the government, and that is they cannot just provide infrastructure on end to be able to absorb the number of candidates that are coming for higher education. And that is why the private universities have come in, and they are doing a very good job. And the number of private universities we have in Ghana, the churches account for the greater number. And the churches are doing this as a social responsibility, and not necessarily to make money out of it. I can take my university, for instance. The church is providing for infrastructure. The fees that we charge is to be able to attract lecturers and pay for the salaries of these lecturers. And therefore, at the end of the day, it isn't a profit-making entity as such. Now, if government comes in with taxing the private universities, what is going to happen is that the private universities are going to cut down on a number of developments. What we are all looking for is quality. And quality comes when you have infrastructure. Quality comes when you have lecturers that are trained to PhD level. Quality comes when you have all the logistics that can support you in operating as a private university.
Well, he's not only worried about the fact that these universities have a problem, but he thinks that the timing of this particular tax is also wrong.
So for me, I think the time is not right. If government wants to tax private universities, they should come to the aid of private universities, make sure that they are now strong on their feet. I mean, once you develop them to a particular point and you begin to tax, nobody will question you. There has to be differentials in tax systems. The tax system is not to punish people or because we need money, we want to squeeze. Tax is to make you a happy taxpayer, so that when it's time for you to pay your tax, you are full of joy because you know you are paying tax to help develop your country. But when you find it to be punitive, That is where we begin to have challenges as far as payment of tax is concerned.
But if government decides
Now, so let me tell you how important these private universities are. We have 63 of them dotted around the country. They admit 26% of students who enter universities across the country. Now, in the 2011-2012 academic year, private universities had an enrollment of 50,000 students. It is right to tax them considering their role in educational development of the country. And very soon I'll be speaking to the editor-in-chief of the Inside newspaper, Mr. Kwesi Pratt. If you've just joined me on the line, thanks so much for speaking to us. Right, I'm told that we don't have Mr. Kwesi Pratt, but I told you earlier, 63 of these private universities are dotted across the country. 50,000 of them alone went into the 2011-2012 academic year. Now we're told that 26% of students across the country get admission into private university colleges because they could not get admitted to any of the public universities. And that is how serious the issue is. And that is why the private universities are backing at government for deciding to tax them from corporate taxes, and that is exactly what we'll be discussing here. But before I speak to some experts on issues of taxes and some social commentators, let's listen to what Ghana has to say about this particular issue of taxing private universities.
If it is a uniform tax being paid by public and private institutions at the tertiary level, then I think that is okay. But if private institutions are being asked, then I think that is not fair.
Okay, I believe the private institutions here are supposed to help students who have completed the secondary schools to gain admission for tertiary education, regardless of whatever field they want to be in. So if the government is taxing them, then I believe that rather you are closing more avenues for students to come into schools to learn every trade or any type of specialty they really want to. So I think it's not quite good.
Well, as a student, definitely we're going to face or experience the effects on the increase in tax on private universities. This is because our parents ought to tell for that. Most private institutions, though they are in existence to offer quality education service for us, they are still in existence to make profits. And therefore, if they are to bear the consequences of the increase in tax, or they having to pay an increase or bearing the cost of paying an increase in tax, definitely it will be transferred to we students to pay.
And of course, there's the views of the public on what has been decided, but that private university colleges be taxed. And of course, we'll be staying right on this particular issue later on News at 8. But we're told that 63 of them make up what we have as way of a country. We're told that 26% of admissions to the tertiary level find your way into private universities. In the 2012-2011 academic year alone, 50,000 students got enrolled into private universities. A lot of more of you have sent in your comments by way of the social media, and I'll be getting to them to read them and tell you exactly what you are thinking about, especially with the decision to tax these private universities. And so we'll be getting more and more information on this particular issue. Don't forget that we'll be trying also hard to speak to the education ministry and to tell us exactly what has been the issue. The ministry is suggesting that, well, the issue has not come to its notice, but the law was passed in May, and that means that private universities will will get ready to pay the taxes. I'm taking a short break, and when I come back, I'll be getting more from what you have sent us by way of our social media platform, especially on Facebook, and then we'll continue the discussion. When most of you spoke to us, to our comments, a lot more of you have sent your comments onto our social media platform on Facebook precisely, and we're asking you, should they or why shouldn't private universities pay taxes? After all, they are business entities. So a lot more of you have sent in your comment. Let me go through them now. First of all, Prestigious Boy Tijani says government should tax them because they collect fees more than government universities in Ghana. That is what you think. And then Kennedy Asarabeku says, so So in all these years, private universities do not pay taxes and they collect high amount of school fees. They are killing this country. Government should tax them. Are they above the laws? It is talking about corporate taxes. They were not paying corporate taxes. And then but was Terra. All this while private university was doing pay tax. Tuition fees is so high. They are doing business. They have to pay tax. That is what you think. But let me once again try and pick a few thoughts from Professor Omani Antwi of the Pentecost University College there. Now, Professor Omani Antwi, thanks so much for speaking to us. Now, you think that the timing is wrong. Are you suggesting that perhaps the government should give you timelines for you to prepare and pay the corporate tax?
Yeah, what I'm saying is that basically the private universities are now moving into the sciences. And once you want to diversify into the sciences, you need a lot of money for infrastructure, for equipment and whatnot. Over the years, the private universities have not received any help whatsoever from government. And I'm saying that, look, for us to contribute to the educational needs of this country, we should allow the private university to get a firm foundation. And once we have a firm foundation, then we'll be able actually to support whatever the government is coming up as far as these taxes are concerned. We all have to pay taxes. There's no doubt about that. And I support it 100%.
So if you say you all have to pay taxes, now if you talk about timelines, what time are you looking at for the private investors to pay corporate taxes?
Well, basically what I'm saying is that, look, if we were to sit down and say, look, in the next 10 years, in the next 5 years, we're going to come up with for you to pay taxes, and therefore whatever you want to do, make your strategic plans to achieve this kind of level. Yes, but when you are hit like that, because private investors are just plowing back the profit they're making into buildings. And if you go around, most of them are now owing banks, because we need to develop the infrastructure to be able to absorb students. So that is what I'm saying. I'm saying that now, if you move around to any of the private universities, you see that they are putting up buildings. And it's not a question of they are making money, profit for their pocket. No, it's a question of plan by the little return into development.
Professor, so you're suggesting the government gives you 10 years?
Yeah, what I'm saying, yes, sometimes that's so, because in other countries, government gives timeline for private universities to develop. And I think this afternoon I was talking to somebody and I said, look, a typical example is Pakistan. And the private universities were given a particular timeline that, look, we will help you. And even at that time, government went ahead to give them grants, support them with land, support them with development of their faculty, and even support them with grants to high foreign faculty, just to enhance private education. And that is what I'm saying.
And finally, before I let you go, now this tax is in. What would you do next, private universities?
Well, I think our president have written to the government, and I believe that we should be able to sit down and agree on a way forward. I mean, we are going to contribute to this nation. Remember, the numbers that are coming out this year, there's no way the public university will be able to absorb them. Other than that, we'll have a situation where we are constrained of taking students. And remember, we are talking about affordability. Private universities try to reduce your fees. How do you reduce fees if you have taken loans and now you're going to pay taxes on top of it? How do you reduce loans? Most of these private universities are also faith-based universities. These are churches that are actually trying to ensure that they can be good corporate citizens and putting money in education to help the country.
Thanks so much for speaking to me. Professor Omani Antwi is a rector, Pentecost University College. We'll have more on this particular issue. Later we'll be getting the views of some tax experts as well as from government as to whether what the private investors are pleading for will be listened to. We're told that the Education Ministry says it has not come to its notice, but we'll get you more information. Before I go, let me quickly go through some of your comments that you have sent onto Facebook page. And now Food on Rogers, Windsor Karim says, they don't pay tax, yes, their fees cost our heads. Oh my God, they must pay because they are out to make money. And then Susan B. Ashia says they should be made to pay taxes. After all, they are working or they are making profit from the fees they charge. And then Isahaku Inusa Jr. says, says now they don't pay taxes, but you take a look at their fees, it is really high. Ghanaians should expect nothing but an increment in their fees. Taxing them under the current situation is simply wise. And Abu Kadna said they should be taxed, and the government should see to it that they don't transfer it to the students. And my question, this is from Musa Abatwa. You said, my question is how the nation built without taxation. I guess what you want to say is how can the nation develop without taxation? And the issue is whether the tax will be properly used for development. So a lot more of you have your comments in here, but we'll read them later on at 8 p.m. when we'll come your way with news at 8. Thanks so much for staying there. The show was brought to you by Blue Rose Limited, Shelter for All, and Star Life Assurance. We'll have more on this very particular issue on my Jaw Online, and when we come your way again at 8 p.m. with the major news bulletin. My name is Bright Nanafo. Thanks so much for staying there, and see you later on. We have more right on this channel.